Some people say that I want the Islamization of Germany. I'm not the public relation guy for Pakistan. But then reality is
We have, I think, developed some great tolerance for it. So these problems do not matter to us.
there was an editor from a German newspaper who said any attack with lower than 20 dead people, we don't need to cover it. When I lived in Pakistan from 2009 to 2013, you had terror attacks every second day.
So despite the popular support lying with the Palestinian cause, we have seen Western states siding with Israel's indiscriminate bombing of innocent Palestinians. How do you see this? Today we have the privilege to sit with Mr. Hasnain Kazim. He has been a career journalist for about 25 years of his life. Then he forayed into writing books, fiction, non-fiction both. It's not every day we talk to a scholar like this who has the international exposure into the world of politics, into the world of societies and migrations. So we are going to be a little discursive about the range of topics we are going to discuss. So please bear with us and let's welcome him together. Hello, sir. If I may, is it safe to say that you are the only Pakistan origin German writer who has written in German language about Pakistan?
Well, I think I'm the only Pakistani origin German journalist who's written a book on Pakistan, yes.
Yeah.
There are more and more young writers, journalists with Pakistani origin, thankfully, and I'm glad that this is going on. This is a development.
Okay, how has the response been? And could you expand on the subject of your book? What was your book about? I couldn't understand in German. So
Yes, unfortunately, it's only in German.
Yeah.
There's no English translation. Actually, there's going to be a translation into Romanian language.
Romanian language.
I don't know why, but there was a publisher.
So there has been some interest in Romanian.
There has been an interest in, by a publisher in Romania, and they asked for the license, so they got it. It's being translated right now.
What are the prospects that will be translated into Urdu or English
No,
as well?
there's no plan for that. I
Okay,
guess.
but in the
Especially
meantime,
because there's so many books on Pakistan in English language, so that there's no demand, I would say. Although, I mean, you could say there's an interest maybe from my perspective, but it's a very German perspective on Pakistan. Well, I wrote on my 4 years of Pakistan. I lived in Islamabad for 4 years as a correspondent for Der Spiegel. I did all mainly political reporting, but also on cultural, economic things, but also the soft stories. I did travel stories. I went to Skardu, Gilgit, all these places, the beautiful places, to show that this is Pakistan too. I mean, see, the problem for Pakistan is that it has a very certain, well, people have a certain view on Pakistan. It's always terror, Taliban, Islamization. Now, the point is, as a journalist, I'm not the public relation guy for Pakistan. I'm not here to show how nice it is. That is not my task. My task is to show reality. But then reality is, it's not only Taliban and terror. It is, of course, this is a part of it. It is a horrible part of it. But there are also many beautiful parts of it, right? Like the landscape and the people here. And most people suffer from all this development themselves. I mean, most victims of Taliban are Muslims. So one has to show that too. So I wrote on all that kind of stuff. I tried to draw a broad picture of Pakistan. It's a portrait of a country, actually. Very subjective, very from my point of view. Of course, always with a German focus, because I was born in Germany, I was brought up in Germany, so I have a very German view, which some Pakistani people do not understand or do not like. I had discussions with Pakistani diplomats and military people who said, well, you are very critical and this is not, you should also try to do this and try to write that. And I said, listen, I understand you and I do quote you, but it's always my personal view, of course. And I write that also, that it's a subjective view. And I think people like that. And I think that people, those who read the book, it didn't change their view on Pakistan. I think it gave them a view on Pakistan because many people in Germany have no idea of Pakistan.
So your book was sort of an icebreaker for strictly German-speaking populace and their introduction into Pakistani society.
Yeah, I would say so. And also, I mean, many, what I found interesting is I got criticism from older Pakistanis, more conservatives. They said, you're drawing a very critical picture. For them, it was too critical. Then I got many messages from young Pakistani origin Germans like me, but younger than me, much younger than me, like in their 20s. And they read that book and they had no idea of Pakistan themselves. They say, well, we know Pakistan by traveling once every 3 years, visiting relatives, and by the stories of our parents, what they tell us. but we didn't know what to make of it. I mean, is that the only picture? And then we read your book, and you draw a completely different picture because you lived in Pakistan with your German perspective, and this opened our eyes. And now we are planning to visit Pakistan, and not only visit and relatives, but also travel and see. See, for me, I knew Pakistan. I was born in Germany, but I lived in Pakistan for 1 year when I was a small child. My father was sailing on a ship, so my mother came to Karachi. My family is from Karachi originally. So I lived in Karachi, but I was like 2 years old. I have very few, I mean, almost no memories of that time.
Memory, at least.
No.
Do you think that the perception of Taliban threat to West is considered a bigger problem than the actual misery caused to the local people here by Taliban? Because the people here are not considered as humans as the Westerners, and therefore the problems here do not make it to the headlines as much as the mere perceptions of Taliban threats to West are. How you have covered these things as well, like extensively as a reporter.
Yeah. Well, first of all, that's something I learned as a reporter, that threats and dangers and problems, people take more care about it if it considers themselves. So a threat to them is more important than a threat and problems here. And also,
I mean, I'm going to add to this question. I think it seems that way, that they pigeonhole entire Pakistan into this, like, the people from dark ages. I think it has been that way for the longest time, until recently it has begun to change. But has it been that way, or is it just our misunderstanding with the West?
there are a lot of clichés and a lot of things which are like, you see, I mean, since people have no idea of Pakistan and of Pakistanis, so there's hardly any contact with them. And if you have a contact with one person, that's the person who represents Pakistan. Like if you find a girl or a woman who covers herself fully, then people think all women are like that.
Yeah.
Or if you find a woman or a girl, like my sister, she didn't cover herself. I mean, my sister was also born in Germany, and she's German, but of course has Pakistani origin. But she dresses like a German girl. So people think, oh, Pakistan must be very, very liberal, like us. Which is also not true, because there is a conservative aspect here. I mean, people cover and wear different. So it's always cliches, and that is of course difficult to break. You have to tell the stories. You have to show that you have all kind of people. But yes, people see the threats towards themselves, of course, as a bigger problem than the problems which you have here. But that is human. I mean, that happens here as well. Like people here don't know about the problems, economic problems, about the war, Ukraine, Russia. They know about it, but they don't know really what the problems are for us in the West. Rising prices, inflation, problems which you have here to a much bigger extent.
Yeah, we have I think developed some great tolerance for it. So these problems do not matter to us, and we are like, it's just superficial.
Exactly. Yes. So if there's something really horrible happens, that makes it to the papers and to the news. And also, for example, when I lived in Pakistan from 2009 to 2013 as a correspondent, and then I've been covering Pakistan after that as well. I've been traveling here, but that was the time when I lived here. Those were quite bloody times. You had terror attacks every second day, somewhere. So getting used to this horrible news is also a problem, because in the beginning you say, oh wow, there were like 50 people killed, 100 people killed. There was an attack on a church in Peshawar where like people were killed. There was an attack to a school where children of military officers were attending, and Taliban came into there. I think more than 90 or 100 were killed, children. That makes it to the news. But then if you have like another news night like that, another bomb blast, another suicide attack, another 10 people killed, another 15 people killed.
Whose damage is on a lower scale.
On a lower scale, or even if it's on a bigger scale, but it happens every day, people unfortunately get used to it. And it is very cynical, but I remember there was an editor from a German newspaper who said, that was about Afghanistan, where we had attacks all the time. He said, any attack with lower than 20 dead people, we don't need to cover it. And that was very cynical, but unfortunately, this is how news work. Because if things get normal, in the sense of it happens every day, it's not a news anymore. So that is horrible, and that shows the problems we face in the world, like terror attacks and.
Also, as a journalist, you get used to so much chaos that you don't even have time or the interest in other stories, I think, at least insofar as this era prolongs.
Yeah.
You have seen this transition of Pakistan from becoming from being a very violent country, or not violent country, but being a very being a foremost target of terrorism, to a rather peaceful country as well. Now, has also the shift in the Western media manifested in any way, like on how they look at Pakistan? They still think Pakistan is like a terror-ridden country, or they understand Pakistan as like a country that they can ally with?
No, what they see is, and that is also what I see, of course, it's not only a terror country, right? And you can live here, you can live a peaceful life here, you can live a happy life here. But then on the other side, and that's why I wouldn't really agree that there has been a shift from a violent country to a peaceful country, because what I do see here is that this peaceful situation can switch within a day or within hours.
So it's whimsical.
Yeah. So, and that is what I write, what I say, and it's not because I don't like the country. It's the opposite is the case. I love this country. I love my time here. I love the people, and of course my family is from here, so I have my roots here. There's always a special relation if you have your own roots here, right? So I want this to be a peaceful, good country. But I do see the problems. For example, we had elections in Pakistan, and I'm here for the Karachi Literature Festival. I've been invited to talk, and there were all these rumors going on. Oh, is this going to happen? What is going to happen after the elections? And I said, come on, what kind of election is this? I mean, if you have elections, you have to accept the result, the outcome, and that's what
Respect
it is.
the public's mandate.
And yes. So what is all this? Oh, we have to be careful, and maybe something will happen. So, and there might be violence and chaos. So this is something, and
Reeks of engineering.
yeah, but this is something which also annoys me, because this shouldn't happen in a democracy, and we should respect rule of law. But then you come here and see, yeah, everything is fine.
What do you sense here now that you have just arrived, but you have spent few hours and you have gotten the air into your system, Pakistani air? What do you think?
I think hopefully things will turn out fine, inshallah.
Pakistan has received so much flake, so much criticism over its treatment with the migrants. But when the same happens in Germany, nobody criticizes them in a way that they liberally do Pakistan, because it's, I think, the same everywhere in the world, the treatment meted out to the immigrants, especially when they are dubbed as illegal aliens or illegal migrants.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about that? Pakistan has had issues with its migrants, but what about the situation in the West? You have covered.
Yeah.
International.
Well, I wouldn't agree with you that they are not getting criticism. There's a lot of criticism in all this, how they treat migrants. And it's not very clear. For example, in Germany, but also in Europe, but also in the US, we have a massive rise of right-wing populist politicians, parties, who are saying migrants are a problem. Now, I would not say that there's no problem. Of course, it's a huge task to cope with. Like, for example, in 2015, we had more than 1 million people coming to Germany. 1 million people within a year.
Within a year.
Mainly from Syria and Afghanistan, but also from African countries, Pakistan, Turkey, different other countries as well. Mainly Muslims. Now, this is, since Germany is more or less mainly a Christian country, I mean, religion doesn't play a role that much anymore. Like in the past 40, 50 years, the church, Christianity, of course it dominates in the sense of, like, culturally it has had an imprint on society, but people are not very religious. Now there are Muslims coming of all kind of sort, like more or less liberal Muslims, but many conservative ones also, and with their own views, their own, and that of course causes problems.
Instead of assimilating into the society, they want to impose their culture, they would say.
Impose some, stick to their rules. They say, for example, the girls have to cover, which is very unusual in Germany. Like, especially if you're fully covered, like in a burqa or something. We don't have many of those, but see, the problem is there are 4 or 5 in a small city.
And they stand out.
and they stand out, and then all these right-wing politicians come and
point to them,
point to them and say, we have to do something. See, this is Islam. They are not Islam. They're part of it. Yes, we cannot.
They're individuals who have their certain interpretations.
We cannot say that this is not Islam. This is also part of it, but it's one part of a broad, because Islam, I mean, we have like more than 1 billion people who are Muslim.
Islam is not a political party, it's a religion. Everyone has their own sects.
Like, there's not one Islam, we have like more than 1 billion people, and there are different kind of practicing. There's Sufism, there are Shia Sunni things, there's so many different cultural things also. But what happened is that, again, they said all these Muslims are like this. And it causes a problem for all these 1 million people, but it also causes a problem for all kind of people, millions like me. I mean, I have, of course, Muslim background, I have Pakistani background, but I'm German. I live there like a German. I mean, all my friends and the people who know me, they wouldn't say that, but there are people who do not know me. And if you are like somehow in a way outstanding and a public figure like I am as a writer, then they point to you and say, you are also an Islamist. You are also somebody like that, and we should throw you out. And you should go back where you're from. I say, why? I am from Holland. It's a small village in the northern part of Germany. Where do you want me to go back? To Pakistan? This is a country which is not, I mean, of course my heart is also here, but this is not my country because I was not born here. Didn't grow up here.
But despite being born in Germany, despite speaking German like a proper German again, you as you have said, you still get hate for your roots. How do you think a migrant would feel in the Western world, which has held the pedestal of civilization? They have preached the whole world on what civilization is, and then when it comes to them, one would say that they are always ready to sow the seeds of discord in every part of the third world. But when it comes to dealing with its outfall, they just want to, turn a blind eye to it. Is there any justification to that? Is there any plausible reason you would say that, it makes sense for them to do this? Treat the people from different origins in a certain way with hatred or with discrimination.
There is no justification for hate at all. I think, but the thing is, I mean, and the solution is, and it's a very hard, tough way, which I have learned throughout actually my whole life. The only solution is that you have to talk and talk and talk and explain and get to know each other. This is one thing. This is the main thing, actually, because people you don't hate them.
I'd like to point out here that you engage so much on Twitter with people.
Yeah.
You quote tweet a lot. So would you like to explain to us?
Yeah, I do that because see, a lot of hate you get through Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all these social media, and people see me. They just see my picture. They say, "Oh, this must be a Muslim." They see my name. They see my name, and I've got like brown. Yeah. He's a Muslim, and he's an Islamist. That's what they say. Islamist. I said, what do you mean Islamist? This is but that's enough. And even if I write a story, like for example, I wrote a story on traveling in northern areas of Pakistan, like Skardu and all that, Gilgit, Baltistan, and of course it was a portrait of like a travel story is, like it was positive, right?
Positive and soft stories. You are humanizing this side of the world as well.
And they said, how can you write this on this Islamic country? I said, are you crazy? I mean, of course you can go there, and what is your point?
The meadows and the glaciers are not Islamic.
Exactly. and the food is not. And
food is not, culture is not.
And even if the people are Muslim, I mean, they're friendly, nice people.
Yeah, you can't just typecast them.
Yeah. So, but that's what happens. So I start arguing with them. Sometimes I make fun of them. Like, I got to hear that I am an Islamist. Some people say that I want the Islamization of Germany, which is crazy because I'm not a religious type. So I wrote a book on which I said, yes, I want to make Germany a caliphate. It's a satire. And everybody who has a bit of humor and a bit of sense understands this is not...
They received it very well, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But what about the other people
But some people got really angry and annoyed, and some people understood, okay, now he's not an Islamist, but others are. So it's different. But the only way is you can argue and discuss with them. And also I think, and that is a very important point, because if you look at the political left, they sometimes in Germany, in Europe, deny the problems. They say there's no problem at all. Of course, we do have problems. As I said, you have cases of like criminal cases, you have radical people, you have Muslim migrants who come and say, but the Western world is bad and the Germans are bad, don't interfere with them. And they want to impose their culture and their way of thinking and life which is also not okay. Now, I wouldn't say do as the Romans. You don't have to assimilate fully. You can, of course, you can be a Muslim and live as a Muslim in Germany.
But you also respect the
But you also respect that, as if you are a German, if you're a Westerner, you come to Pakistan, you respect the way how people in Pakistan live. You cannot run around naked anywhere on a beach as you do in Germany, for example, which I find strange. But you cannot do that in Pakistan or in a Muslim country, and you respect that. And that's how respect and a respectful living together works. So if you explain that again and again, and if you do accept that there are problems, and if you name them and talk about them and fight them, then it's okay. So I found it amazing. I don't know very much about the situation in Pakistan, about migrants, regarding migrants, but I read that Pakistan is now showing a hard hand against them. They're all going to be thrown out, illegal. I do understand that there's a problem with people who have no papers and who come and then cross the border. On the other side, I saw and talked even to people who are Pathans, Pashto speaking people, and who are from Afghanistan, but they're like 4th, 5th, 6th generation here.
Yeah.
So their grandparents might have been in Afghanistan, but they have always, their whole life, and even their parents and their grandparents have lived in Pakistan. So I find it hard to say you don't belong here. They're also part of the society. So
they should have been naturalized.
They should have been naturalized. They should have been accepted, and also they themselves should have tried to mingle and integrate.
Despite all the privileges that West commands, all the resources in terms of wealth, in terms of its relations, in terms of its alliances with other Western countries, West still has problem with the migrants. Pakistan, given its constraints, given its context, given its challenges, when it deals with the migrants, West should see it from a different scope. I'm playing devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
Given the situation it has faced, given the militarization of its land, given its embroilment as proxy in different wars, Pakistan has suffered a lot, and thus this immigrant problem just adds more to its already shackled economy. And would you say that Pakistan should be given some leverage when it comes to dealing with the migrants issues? Because obviously it has certain limits.
In what sense leverage?
Leverage as in West has more privilege and therefore more responsibility.
Yeah, of course.
To repatriate certain irregular migrants. The draft seeks to make it easier and faster to deport people who are still in the country despite not having the legal...
Now, more than 1.7 million Afghans have been told to leave Pakistan by November the 1st.
You are making a switch towards fiction now. You started out as a journalist. You have been a career journalist for like 25 years or so, and then you started writing books. First of all, I would want to know that as journalists you have certain constraints and you have to tote editorial lines for whichever organization you are associated with. But as a writer, as a book author, you have a better framework of like the boundaries. You can take more liberty. Can you tell us about this switch? How has it been? Now you're a commentator, you're an author. Before you were a journalist. How has the shift been, and what change have you experienced?
Yeah, I mean, I always, as a child, wanted to be a writer and write fiction. I always loved that, but living off that is very difficult. And so I thought, well, why not write on true stories, become a journalist, make a career out of that. And I always was interested in war reporting or crisis reporting. So I did a lot of reporting also from Afghanistan, for example, when the German troops were there. So when I was the correspondent in Pakistan, I always traveled to Afghanistan also a lot, and I did that. And of course, I mean, liberties, for example, in Germany for German media is, I mean, you have to, of course, you have ethical rules as a journalist, but there are hardly any red lines which you have in Pakistan, which you have in Turkey, where I was a correspondent, which I understand to a certain extent. Like, I understand this is for me very difficult as a journalist with a German liberal view, but I had to accept it or try to somehow cope with it, which was interesting. And that's actually it. There are no other red lines. As a fiction writer, as you said, you are very free to write what you want.
Even as a non-fiction writer, if you are writing a book of your own, then you can take some liberties.
Of course.
And although there there must have been transition in your phase, because you have been reporting and writing news articles where you have to be extremely objective and you have to cater to both sides.
And, yes,
but as a commentator, you can take sides.
You can take sides. That's one thing. And it started then when I got all this criticism that I'm an Islamist and I'm this and that. And I wrote this book, Mein Kalifat in German. This satire where a young man becomes caliph of Germany and he makes Germany to a caliphate. And and I knew this is tricky because some Muslims would say, this is not good to do it this way. But especially the right-wing populist people in Germany, the Christians, they would be very annoyed. And I was looking forward to it. I thought, well, let's see what will happen. And I was free to write as I want, right? And that was my first non-fiction, my first fiction book. And I enjoyed it. And now I'm writing on a novel, and I do catch myself in situations where I write something and then I ask myself, but where's the proof of this and where's the source? And then I remember, I don't need a source and I don't need a proof because I'm writing fiction. And I love to cycle, and Germany is a country which is a paradise for people who like cycling. So I cycled all the way north, south, west, east, thousands of kilometers. Spent weeks, actually months, on my cycle, and I met different kind of people.
You kind of ethnographed entire Germany.
And I met rich, poor, old.
If you were to summarize this whole experience into few lines, how would you put it? How would you do it? And I'm sure I know you are writing a book about it.
Yeah.
It would be an insult for you to for me to request you to summarize this experience, but for the masses to know about your upcoming book.
I understand your question. I mean, it's hard to, you cannot put it into one sentence. But the main problem which I see in Germany is that people don't, it's actually a problem which we have in Pakistan as well, to a different extent. People don't know each other very well. Like the Eastern Germans think in a certain way about Western Germans, and Northerns about the Southern people. They don't talk, and rich people have a certain against each other, and
it could be random, but it is there nevertheless, because it has its seeds.
And you can see that there's a segregation is happening between rich and poor, and between West and East also, and between political left and right. So I think there's a need to talk about problems, and not to stick to ideology. That is really a problem.
But on the other hand, there is a rise of extremism as well, fundamentalism. You have written extensively about that as well. So would you like to comment on the rise of extremism globally? Not just in this part of the world, but in the West as well.
Yeah, we have this. I mean, we can, the best example, because it's not a German problem. People in Germany tend to think it's a German problem. We have it all over the world. One of the best examples is Mr. Trump in the US. We have a person who's extremely right-wing populist. He became president, and maybe he'll become president again. We have right-wing populist politicians in Europe everywhere. I mean, in France, Le Pen, in Geert Wilders in the Netherlands. We have it in the Eastern European countries, Hungary, Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Austria, where I live. The right-wing party, FPÖ, is very strong. And then Germany, of course. And I think the world is changing, right? I mean, we don't have this one. The US have, especially under Trump, taken a step back. Now Trump is threatening NATO to get out of NATO, so Europe will be on its own, military-wise and security-wise. And we see a very aggressive Russia right now, Putin, who will save Europe. I mean, we need some strategy which Europe doesn't have. There's not one strategy. So these are all things which are changing. Then we have the global warmth, the climate change, which Pakistan is a victim of very heavily. Yeah. So things are changing, and we have to discuss how we change, especially in the West, how we change our lifestyle, like flying around, having big cars, using a lot of fuel and all that. And this causes a lot of trouble, of course, and fears, which I understand. People fear, I mean, everybody fears to lose his standard, or fears to become poorer than before. This is also human in the human psyche, but we have to somehow cope with that.
So despite the popular support lying with the Palestinian cause, we have seen Western states siding with Israel's indiscriminate bombing of the innocent Palestinians. How do you see this?
This is a topic which is very tricky, especially as a German. I mean, you know about German history.
Yeah.
And I have a German view on this, which is Germany has caused, I wouldn't say the death, but the killing. I mean, the industrial killing of 6 million Jews. And as a German, you learn this at school. And I can just recommend anybody who has the time to go to Auschwitz, which is in Poland today, to these concentration camps where people were killed. And if you see that, and if you see all that, you know why Germany has this way. It's difficult to take a very openly critical stance towards Israel. But of course, yes, we have to be critical of that too. See, until 7th of October 2023, the terror attack of Hamas in Israel, I would have always been on your side or on the Muslim world side to criticize the government of Netanyahu as a not right-wing populist, right-wing extremist party. I would have been very critical. And I still am critical, but it's very difficult to be it after 7th of October, because if you see, and I've seen the movies which the terrorists have taken with their cams on.
So, but globally there have been reports, even by the Western media, they have retracted from their earlier stances where they substantiated their anti-Hamas reporting with some proofs and evidences, which they retracted from afterwards, saying those were not verified and those were just fabricated videos floated by Israel military.
Well, there's of course propaganda in every war. I do see that. So yes, of course, we have to look and be careful of propaganda.
Thank you so very much, Hassan,
Thank you.
for taking out time and talking to us. It's been
Thank
a
you for
pleasure.
asking me.
We'll see you. Thank you.
Thank you.